Title: Inside South Dakota's oldest prison, where time stopped for the inmates. Help this channel grow. Like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe for more stories. This helps us a lot. Thank you. The story begins. The sun dips low over the red brick towers of the South Dakota State Penitentiary, built in 1881, before South Dakota was even a state. Inside its historic cell blocks, time appears frozen. Hallways echo with footfalls, metal doors sigh shut, and men who serve their sentences here call it life without time. For more than a century, this facility has housed the state's most serious offenders. But today it tells a different story, a story of aging infrastructure, overcrowding, and a system struggling to keep up. On July 9, 2025, an invited tour exposed what many have long suspected. In cells designed for 2 men, each occupant had just 56 square feet of space, less than one rental studio in today's housing market. https://www.dakotanewsnow.com. Guests trekked through East Hall, where heat pressed heavy even with air conditioning running. Sweat glistened on the faces of inmates and staff alike. A faint smell of smoke drifted from a third-floor cell after an inmate set paper ablaze, a sign of the frustration roiling beneath the day-to-day. https://www.dakotanewsnow.com. These conditions sit in stark contrast to expectations. When people imagine prison, they imagine guard towers, razor wire, barbed fences, and hard time. But here the hardship is quieter. Slow, relentless, a daily wait. No dramatic escapes. No fiery riots. Just men confined in cells forgotten by time. Overcrowding is the root of much of this pressure. The same facility that once offered one man his own cell now holds 2, and sometimes more as new admissions arrive. Meanwhile, policies passed by the legislature in 2023 have tightened sentences for violent offenders, requiring them to serve between 85% and 100% of their terms. South Dakota News Watch. A 2025 report reveals that male inmates in South Dakota are already housed at 133% of design capacity. Correctional News. What happens when walls built for 1 begin to hold 2 or 3, and even more? Hallways turn congested with staff, bathroom lines grow longer, and cell time expands. A walk through the facility shows bunk beds that once held 2 now squeezed to 4, sheets worn thin, mattresses sagging, and fans scavenged from commissary as a personal lifeline. The former warden described the cell conditions as a moment where the system catches its breath, but the men inside feel the squeeze. Mental health services struggle too. Deaths of inmates are rising. The department reported its 5th inmate death in 30 days in June 2025. Argus Leader. While individual causes vary, they paint a troubling picture of a system under stress, where staff shortages, infrastructure failures, and growing populations combine into risk. At the same time the facility creaks under load, state leaders are planning the future. A 2025 consultant report suggests South Dakota will need to invest between $1.9 billion and $2.1 billion over the next decade to build new prison capacity and relieve pressure. South Dakota Searchlight. The notion is stark. Modern crime, aging prison built in the 19th century, and decades of deferred maintenance colliding. Inside the penitentiary, the tension is both physical and psychological. In one cell, 2 men share 56 square feet. That's less room than some dog shelters use for 2 animals. https://www.dakotanewsnow.com. One inmate said, "You don't understand what the environment is they have to work in." He stressed the heat, the limited air circulation, even the hum of the lights overhead. Yet among the hardship, a system still tries to uphold purpose. The warden publicly pledged transparency and said staffing would be increased and disciplinary policies reviewed. https://www.dakotanewsnow.com. Still, the question lingers. What kind of life is built for men behind historic walls designed for a different era? In the broader context, South Dakota stands out. While many states are reducing incarceration, this state is heading another direction. With sentencing stricter, parole limits tighter, the pressure builds from within. South Dakota News Watch. And when the very architecture of the prison, rusted vents, narrow cell doors, outdated plumbing, begins to reflect those policies, the human cost rises. We begin here inside the South Dakota State Penitentiary because it's more than a cell block or state budget. It is a symbol. A place where time stopped for the inmates, where years are measured not in days but in silence. Where the walls built for a different age now hold the weight of modern punishment. In the coming chapters, we'll explore how these pressures ripple outward, from mental health crises to infrastructure failures, from human cost to policy debates. But right now, look into those aged walls, feel the heat that never quite leaves, and ask, what is justice in a place where nothing seems to move except the clock, and still no one goes free? The crisis inside, overcrowding, violence, and the invisible toll. Only a few hundred yards from the imposing facade of the historic 1881 structure of the South Dakota Department of Corrections main facility lies its newer annex, the Jameson Annex. It was built in 1993 to supplement the aging walls of the original penitentiary, doc.sd.gov, but even this addition now feels overwhelmed. Because the problem isn't just old buildings, it's a system under strain. South Dakota now locks up more people per capita than virtually any other U.S. state. The nonprofit Prison Policy Initiative reports that the state's incarceration rate is around 812 per 100,000 residents, surpassing even many countries. Prisonpolicy.org, that means 40 years' worth of policy shifts, sentencing changes, and budget compromises all converge inside these walls. And for the men locked here, the result is the same: more bodies, fewer resources, and less hope. In May 2025, a violent outbreak inside the penitentiary exposed how fragile the system has become. According to reporting, 10 inmates were injured when several assaults broke out inside one unit. 5 were stabbed and 3 had to be treated in hospital. South Dakota Searchlight, the state attorney general's office labeled the violence gang-related and promised accountability, yet the event marked a warning sign. Even a prison built for containment can become uncontrollable when stretched beyond design. Closer inspection reveals the roots of this crisis. A July 2025 investigative feature described 2 men housed in a cell designed for one. They had just 56 square feet to share, less space than many animal shelter requirements. The heat pressed down, iron bunk beds glinted under flickering fluorescent lights. The air smelled stale. https://www.dakotanewsnow.com. When the architecture itself begins to feel like the punishment, you know the system has failed the people inside. And the policy decisions aren't helping. In 2023, the legislature passed stricter laws forcing violent criminals to serve 85% to 100% of their sentences, with fewer prospects for parole. Correctional news, at the same time, projections indicate the male inmate population will grow by roughly 2.7% annually through 2036, pushing the system toward a population of over 4,400 men and requiring thousands of additional beds. Correctional news, simply put, more people are going in, fewer are coming out, and the buildings weren't designed for it. Inside the facility, the strain shows in both infrastructure and humanity. Cells built for a different era creak under outdated plumbing, ventilation systems that barely reach upper bunks, and aging dormitories that house far more than intended. Staff suffers the same pressure: higher caseloads, fewer resources, and harder decisions every day. One inmate, speaking under anonymity, told investigators, "You don't understand what this place does to you. It's not just the bars. It's the feeling that nothing changes, day after day after day." The quote reinforces that the crisis isn't loud, it's silent. It's not the riot, it's the endless confinement, the heat that doesn't leave, the cellmate you didn't choose, the hope you can't hold on to. The mental health toll is also rising. Deaths in custody have increased. Though each case is different, the pattern is clear. When staffing, space, and resources shrink, the risk rises. The department's own statistics show mounting off-site hospitalizations, suicides, and self-harm incidents. Offender Locator, it's a system where the physical violence is visible, but the psychological damage is hidden. In response, the state is finally taking action. Legislators approved a $650 million plan to build a new 1,500-bed men's prison in Sioux Falls to replace the 140-year-old facility. AP News. That's the largest taxpayer-funded initiative in state history, a tacit admission the old prison could not handle the present. The new structure promises better space, better health care, and a future beyond containment alone. But the decision has sparked its own debate. Critics say pouring hundreds of millions into more cells risks perpetuating the same cycle of incarceration without reform. Why build more capacity if the system keeps filling it with people who have no hope of change? The question echoes in the cell blocks. At what point does punishment end, and dehumanization begin? In the wings of the facility, you can still hear the echo of doors slamming, the steel bunk beds settling, the hum of fluorescent lights. Time moves slower here because time is measured in shifts, in cell rotations, and restless nights. For the men inside, many serving decades, the walls hold more than just bodies. They hold lives paused, identities suspended, possibilities stolen. The crisis isn't just overcrowding. It's a legacy of a bygone system haunted by modern consequences. As we move into the final chapter, we'll explore what happens when the architecture of punishment collides with human need, and how the next generation of prison design hopes to break the cycle or bury it deeper. But for now, walk the corridors, count the bunks, watch the silent faces. Because inside South Dakota's oldest prison, the crisis is not just inside the walls, it is the walls. Toward tomorrow, reform, reality, and what comes next. If the first chapters captured where the system is broken and what the men inside endure, this chapter asks, where do we go now? For the nearly 140-year-old facility in Sioux Falls, the answer is not just new walls. It's about rethinking how we punish, rehabilitate, and hold people accountable. In September 2025, the state of South Dakota reached a milestone decision. Lawmakers approved a plan to build a new 1,500-bed men's prison, replacing the aging penitentiary in Sioux Falls. AP News. The price tag, $650 million, making it the most expensive taxpayer-funded project in the state's history. Brookings Register. This came after years of debate, consultants' reports, policy shifts, and growing frustration with a prison built for another era. The initiative is not just a construction project. It is pitched as a chance for a reset. State officials say the new design will include modern healthcare facilities, expanded mental health services, larger cells, by comparison, space for educational and vocational programs, and improved security and staffing features. AP News. But critics argue that without policy reform, sentencing changes, recidivism reduction, better community reentry, this will simply be more capacity for the same system. Take, for example, the Project Prison Reset Task Force convened in 2025. It produced draft legislation that would authorize the building of the new facility in Northeast Sioux Falls, or the previously considered Lincoln County site, and earmark funds for the prison's construction. Sioux Falls Live. The language of the bill spoke of a facility meant to last another 100 years, a dramatic departure from the creaking walls of the penitentiary built in 1881. The public opinion. Yet, while the blueprint looks forward, inside the old prison the effects are already visible. Inmates and staff alike speak of a weary anticipation, hope mixed with skepticism. One inmate, asked what change he'd like most, simply said, that the heat doesn't kill me before the next riot. Another staff member reflected on the fatalities and fights of recent years. It's not just the building that kills hope. It's the days with nothing changing. Humanity sits at the heart of the reform narrative. State officials acknowledge that decades of policies, truth in sentencing laws, fewer parole opportunities, and a rising prison population have piled onto older infrastructure. One report projected that South Dakota could face up to $2 billion in prison costs over the next decade, if current trends continue. AP News. In other words, building new walls may buy time, but unless the system changes, the same problems will move inside them. For the families of inmates, the change can't come soon enough. One woman whose brother serves a 30-year sentence in the penitentiary said, "I visited last year and I still smelled the old pipes, heard the same echoing cell block. It felt like I was visiting a ghost." Her hope is that the new facility will bring more humane conditions and the programs to rebuild lives. But she worries that more humane might just mean less broken. The location itself became a flashpoint. The proposed Lincoln County site sparked fierce local opposition. Neighbors argued they had been blindsided by the state's land acquisition and voiced concerns about transparency and cost. The public opinion. Ultimately, the shift to a site closer to Sioux Falls aimed to reduce staff recruitment issues, maintain access to services, and ease logistics. But the debate highlighted that reform isn't only about bricks and mortar. It's about trust, community, and accountability. As legislation moves forward, we reach a key crossroads. Will the state use this moment to reset how it uses prison as a tool, or will it double down on containment? Supporters offer a hopeful vision: fewer inmates through diversion programs, more treatment for mental health issues, education and job training behind bars, and a system built on change instead of simply punishment. Opponents warn of unchecked capacity, more cells filled by more people, and a repeat of the same cycle: build, fill, break, rebuild. Inside the current penitentiary, there is already a small glimmer of change. A handful of programs, vocational workshops, reentry counseling, and small education classes are being piloted. But they share the same space as bunk beds, old plumbing, and stale cell air. For many inmates, the change hasn't yet touched their daily lives. And yet, functionally, the new prison represents a bet, not just on infrastructure but on a change in culture. If the new facility opens around 2029 as projected, and delivers on promises, it may become a model for other states facing the same dilemma: aging prisons, rising costs, and a tough U.S. climate for reform. Mitchell Republic. If it fails, however, it risks being a monument to costly inertia. For the men who live inside South Dakota's oldest penitentiary, the promise of tomorrow won't erase the damage of yesterday, but it offers a moment to reflect. They've served long, looked out small windows, shared tiny cells, and felt the system smile and shrug at their suffering. Reform might mean fewer men crowding old walls, or it might mean new walls in the same crowd. The difference will be in choices, not just construction schedules. As you walk once more through the creaking halls of the old penitentiary, you'll spot the peeling paint, the sagging mattress, the calendar pages stuck on the same date for years. A new building has been approved, yes, but until it opens, the men inside still serve time where time stopped. And when the new doors swing open, South Dakota's test will begin. Can a system built on confinement become one built on change?